everybody. It's Cam from the Women's Outdoor Connection, and I am so super stoked to be talking to Erica Lichty. And she is in charge of and represents and basically is the founder of Seastr and Pacific Northwest. Hopefully, I'm saying that right.
Yep.
And I am just the where she is located. I mean, if that doesn't speak volumes for what this is all about. I've been doing a little bit of studying and learning more about what it is that you do, and I am so excited for you to talk to us. Um, one of the things it was one of the first things that I read. It was an article, and it said, "Water is the liquid of life," and I loved that, and I think that's really kind of the representation of what you're doing with your organization and giving that power to females and just that encouragement. So I'm really stoked for us to talk about all the things about sailing and about being on the water. And so I'm gonna let you take it from here and really
Cool.
give us an idea of how this all began and
Yeah.
how we can all participate.
Okay.
What you got?
Yeah,
Where
thank
are
you.
you
Where
first?
am I? So this is not just a day in the life. Like we are blessed to be surrounded by watercraft. My family, myself, my husband. I just got married.
Congratulations.
But this is very special. I grew up, so I'm third generation Seattle. So I was born into maritime and all things boating. And we spent a lot of time cruising the Northwest. But even before that, my parents lived on a boat in Trinidad. That's actually where I was conceived, on the boat there.
Cool.
And then they sailed around the world. So, like, on and off cruising, no racing, just cruising sailboats. And right now, the family's boat is in San Pedro, California. And so my new husband and I jumped down here to join my parents for a week out on Catalina Island.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been planes, trains, and automobiles the past few days, and we were like everything to this moment right now, as we are speaking, came together. The Starlink, all of the things. So
Yeah, very
yeah,
cool.
super lucky. Yeah,
Yeah, and
so
you said you just came up from a dive.
yeah, we just went scuba diving. It was This is pretty amazing. Like I grew up coming to Catalina a lot, worked here the summer before going to California Maritime Academy. But this is called the tourist summer right now. So like all the tourists are gone. The
Yeah,
weather is epic. The clarity, the visibility in the water is incredible. And there's no one here. It's
yeah,
amazing. It's dead, it's quiet.
that's
So
really awesome.
perfect.
That
Yeah.
is so awesome.
Yeah. Very
Yeah,
lucky.
so tell us about your organization
Okay.
and what it is, that you want us to know for before we even come to the Women's Outdoor Connection. You
Yeah.
know, we'll also be looking at this even after the event in October. So
Yeah.
just tell us what we should know about you.
Sure. Because I think and I understand why, like Seastr was pigeonholed as a women's surf uh camp. And then we were really noted or recognized for paddling for a while. And now it's like sailing, 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 sailing.
Yeah,
And I think the idea, of course, we've been around since 2021. We've only been a nonprofit for a few years. And even though our mission statement stays the same, we are always going to be adapting and growing to whatever our community's needs are, which are
yeah,
underrepresented humans. And so, what we're finding right now is an incredible vessel and platform for getting more people access to the water is a sailboat.
hmm.
It's not the most, cost effective
No.
means, but like we just or my motto is just get it done. Like let's just go for it and and so far it's working. Like we have the funding's been happening recently, the longer we're present, and we've got incredible sponsors in the Northwest. But the idea is I think it really does stem from maritime. um like if I so I said I was born into a maritime family, and Seattle itself is a maritime hub. And when I say maritime in that aspect, I'm talking about commercial maritime. And we've got everybody
Yes,
knows that we have the Port of Seattle.
sure.
So, but growing up or coming out of the Maritime Academy in San Francisco, I'd come back. People were like, well, what do you do? I said, well, I'm in the Maritime. And they would think I was in the Marines or something. Like I would have to
Yeah.
explain it to them. And I was like, what is wrong? What's missing here? Like we live in a maritime hub, and the people that live here in the region don't even know what maritime is. I mean, hello, talk about gatekeeping. Like what's the deal?
Yeah.
Um, so getting more involved in the past few years, I realized there's this common effort to get the term maritime into the vernacular of the people in our region. Like put it in the living room, get it so that our daughters can know that they not only can be nurses, lawyers, whatever they want, but also they can be tugboat drivers. They
Yeah.
can drive container ships across oceans. They can go into maritime law. I mean, there's all kinds of avenues, and they're in need right now. The U.S. merchant marine fleet is in need of these folks, and yet there aren't a lot of tools or access points to maritime. So what if, and this is a big stretch here, but
Yeah.
what if I'm out there floating around in the waves, introducing someone to surfing, and they're like, well, what do you do? And I tell them about, you know, the tugboating I did and all that, and they're like, that's an option. It's like, oh yeah, let's talk more about that. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden the floodgates open up. And I've noticed that in the last 4 or 5 years. I should do that. We should go back and get stories from women who were participating a few years ago with us and just connect some of the dots. It's pretty incredible.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll
So
never know like what you did in order for them to like
yeah,
gain onto their journey, like,
yeah,
and how you inspired them. I'm sure
yeah,
you've inspired people. I mean,
yeah.
I can't even imagine like, I've done a small amount of sailing. I can't say I'm great at it.
Me neither. Me
You know,
neither.
there
Yeah.
it's on fairly small crafts, so
Mm-hmm.
you have to kind of pay more attention, but
Mm-hmm.
I just went to the wooden boat center and went out sailing with those ladies.
Yeah.
It was a blast,
Isn't it fun?
yeah, it was really fun and really
Good
interesting
group.
and also just gave me um a lot more courage for myself because often I'm sailing with someone that has more experience and
Yep.
then they're trying to teach me. And of course, it's a person that happens to be male.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to sail with a female because
Yep.
the things that they were offering me and the coaching they were offering me was different. It
Mm-hmm.
felt different. And it could have
Mm-hmm.
been my approach to it, but it did. It felt different. It felt more I just understood it better, I guess is the
Yep.
best way to put it, so
Yeah.
it just was really interesting.
And
So,
maybe because your guard was allowed to come down a bit. I mean,
oh, 100%.
we are
Yeah,
allowed to F up in those spaces
sure.
whereas, because some people say, well, what's the problem with having men in these spaces? There is nothing wrong with
No,
it.
no, not at
But
all.
one woman said, when I find myself in those spaces, I'm more concerned with who's making the sandwiches for the lunch break than trying to pay attention to what we're going over at that moment because
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because
and that's interesting you mentioned that because I mean we're kind of born and raised to be nurturers
yep,
and to take care of the community. And
yep,
when we're all together participating, and I find this on the mountain too, when I'm skiing with my girls, we're all kind of helping each other with all of those aspects. And
hmm
we feel, again, like you said, there's a boundary that comes down.
yeah,
I don't feel like I don't have to take care of my friends in the same way that I take care of even my brothers,
yeah,
like it is just different. So
yeah.
what would you say is one of your most memorable moments outdoors or on the water?
um uh, so So for the audience, we had some of these questions before, and I have like 3 pages of I sat there and I answered every single one.
Oh, shoot, really?
Yeah, so I'm going to be glancing down a little. But that one's an easy one for me. It had actually nothing to do with water. I mean, water brings just joy and magic to every day of my life.
Yeah,
And I have to say the most memorable time outdoors was split boarding. It was like was before my last husband. It must have been like 15 years ago. I was with a group turns all year. I think that's what they're called.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
and we did Coleman Glacier,
Okay.
and it was so exact. It was so physically taxing.
Yeah,
Um, and and I was so proud of myself for accomplishing this feat. And I remember the drive down, and I'm in the back seat, just totally exhausted.
yeah,
And it was like this dappled sunlight. We were listening to Band of Horses. The funeral was on, and that moment is so visceral for me. Like I
Yeah.
remember that all the time. It was the most magical moment. Loved it.
Well, and I mean the mountains are my outdoor bug, for sure. And I do turns all year, so I get it. Like
Mhm.
there's times you're like, a quarter to halfway up and you're just like, really? Like
Yeah, yeah,
what am I
yeah.
doing?
I can't believe I did that. Yeah,
I've been up, hiking up Mount Rainier, like and there's I don't know if you're familiar with it, but like there's this one part where there's these rock steps and I've got like skis on my back, boots on my back, and I'm like, okay, you can do it. Like every single movement, like there's nothing you can really, when you're hiking with them on your back, even like you don't have a lot of choices, it's like
yeah,
you got to
yeah.
really pay attention. And then when they're on the snow, it's a whole nother thing. So you're a
Yeah.
snowboarder then.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I started snowboarding when I was a skier first, lived in North Seattle, took the ski bus to Stevens, grew up there, and then started snowboarding when I was 12. I'm 46 now. And then I instructed at Crystal for a while. So
Oh, love it.
yeah,
Great.
yeah.
So do you still snowboard? Do you still?
I have the same snowboard I've had for like 5+ years, and she's a beauty and she gets it done. And I just don't go that much anymore. No, for a
Yeah.
lot of reasons. Maybe we'll get
Sure.
into that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, but you still do it, so that's fun.
yeah.
So, what would you say is probably one of the things that you've ran up against, like the most frustrating thing as far as the industry is concerned, in any aspect, being a business that is dealing with the outdoors and a female, is there anything that you've run up against that
Mm.
frustrate you?
It's funny. I didn't do water specific. I just kind of thought industry as a whole.
You don't have to do water specific. I mean, whatever
Yeah.
you came up with.
Well, according to my notes, I, and maybe this is a little bit to the ski industry, and I'm not going to apologize actually, but a little bit of the cause and effect. The capitalist mentality when it comes to outdoor sports, and it's. I wish more people would give it pause and go, okay, this could be fun, but what effect am I having on the environment by doing this? The gas to get there, the operations to actually do that activity, the byproduct of this, like what's the waste? And
Mhm.
yeah, skiing's just, I'd like to get more. If I'm going to get back out there, I think I want to focus on skate skiing, cross country skiing,
Mhm.
maybe some get back into backcountry, but
Yeah.
I've been a bit turned off about going to the hill. That's
Yeah, I think it's been difficult the last couple of years. Not the last couple of years, but growing up as a skier and being in the outdoors that way a lot and hiking and things. What
yeah,
I've found is really difficult to encounter is just like you said, the cost of it. I mean, and then the impact and the people that are going that aren't understanding that impact.
yeah,
I've really been a big cheerleader for the Indie Pass because I think the Indie Pass does a really great job of representing those smaller areas that
yeah,
are sometimes run by families, like and
yeah,
with two chairlifts,
yeah,
that's the stuff that just like lights my fire as far as like
yeah.
I love to see that. So what would you say is probably some of your biggest successes when it comes to participating in outdoor activities, like in
Yeah.
the industry?
Well, honestly, the first is when I turned 40 is when I had this huge shift in my life. There's a Craft Mountain article that kind of dives a little deeper into that, and that's on our website. But the first group that I found myself in was mountain biking. And first they were the Mud Bunnies, and now they're ever the Crank Sisters. But I'd never been A, surrounded by women like that, and then B, doing, challenging ourselves and being, encouraging one another. I had faced a lot of internalized patriarchy, or no, internalized misogyny. I think that's what we're calling it. But like where women are against each other a lot.
Yeah,
And I was just like, what is this? And it was so cathartic, and found my athlete again and found,
yeah.
some strength there. So,
Yeah,
mountain biking's done a
I
great job.
like that answer because I think what and I agree. I found that in the outdoor community as well. I think a lot of times in just careers and in big corporate environments and stuff, we tend to pit ourselves against each other. And I think
Hmm.
that's unfortunate, like especially in the restaurant industry, I was one of, I don't know, when I was starting, it was like one out of every 25, 30 people were a female. And so when you
Mhm.
encountered another female, there was a it wasn't so much about lifting each other up. It really just really wasn't. You were kind of not necessarily against each other, but sort of like looking at each other going, and I didn't necessarily do that because I'm just a goofball. Like I barely see that you're a girl or a boy or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you want to cook with me? Sure. You want to ski with me? Sure. Like it doesn't,
Hmm.
I don't know. I think it's because I grew up with brothers and the whole thing. But
Hmm.
um, so how would you say that, what would you say overcoming those challenges looks like? Like what did you do personally to overcome that? Did you just start to say, oh, I don't care or
Um, well, specifically about women lifting one another up, that's been something I've been looking for the best channel to start speaking to that and the most effective way to speak to that.
sure,
And I always knew it was let's start with the youth, but
Mhm.
what does that even look like? And so it was a long road, but eventually I found myself as a maritime education coordinator at the Maritime High School in South Seattle. It's a new high school. We just have our first senior class this year.
Cool.
And so I get to mentor and speak to a lot of young women and we talk about that. I'm actually coaching a young paddler right now for an upcoming race. And before I even got on the water with her, I said, here's the deal.
Sure,
Like, we are here to lift one another up. You're going to encounter bullying. You're going to encounter all of these things. And it's going to be by your peers a lot or women. And here's how to handle. And so just giving the tools, being, just teaching kindness
sure.
and listening. Just
Yeah.
listen. Yeah.
Leading with love is like what
Yeah.
I think about, like leading with my heart
Absolutely.
no matter what.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I still, today's happens to be my birthday and I'm 58 today. And it's still at this age, like I'm so surprised that I still encounter it. It's like
Oh,
like I'm so surprised that I still run into it. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like I really try my best to not let it bring you down or anything like that. I
yeah.
just move
Well,
along and I just
yeah.
if you have a problem with the energy and the type of person that I am, and maybe that's the difference as I've gotten older, then you're not my person. You're not going to
Yeah.
be part of my group, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That
Don't subscribe.
yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
it's fine. So,
Yeah.
what
But
are
can I say one more thing
yeah,
to that though?
sure. Go for it.
Because it's such a big part of what we do. And I think when you're an advocate or you're, promoting women's spaces, whatever your mission is, the bigger, the stronger you become, the louder you become, the more you're able to use your voice, which is a great thing. You're going to hear back from the universe
Yeah.
and you're going to get some dialogues. That's healthy. Make
Yeah.
sure you stay on the healthy end of that dialogue,
Yeah.
Don't take anything personally. If you're really putting yourself out there, make sure you get help yourself. I see a therapist every week. It's gotten because a lot of it's triggering because a lot of advocates are advocates because they suffered trauma,
Yeah.
and so just remember to take care of yourself.
I love that. That's great. And it's interesting you bring that up too, because there's been a common theme. Speaking to all the ladies and all the different groups, a lot of us are all warriors and survivors of certain challenges, and we've overcome and used those in a positive format, in a positive way. And it's been incredibly inspirational to me to hear that from all of you. And I think making that example for young women or even just women that are our peers is really important and I feel very blessed and fortunate to be part of it. What are two people in your life that have inspired you the most,
Yeah,
or
definitely
three or
oh,
one?
okay. I know because there was a similar question, and that one was definitely like, oh my gosh, every single person I run into on this journey. But my son, number one, is my son.
uh,
He's about to turn 12, and yeah, like when I turned 40, I was in a bad place, didn't want to be here anymore,
hmm,
and the nurse person I was working with at the hospital, she said to me, um, she's like, that if you had made that choice, if you make that choice to detach, disappear, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
that is the legacy that you are leaving your friends, your family, your son. Um, and it was literally at that moment that I said, I have the opportunity right now to leave a legacy for my son. What is that going to look like?
Mm.
And it was much bigger than I ever thought it would or could be. But this 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 adventure with Seastr that will never end is my legacy to my son, his generation, and my family, and just taking my privilege and putting a little spin on it, and
Yeah.
just saying, how did I survive this long? How did I get through all that trauma?
Yeah.
And it was a lot of tools that I had been given that I didn't even know I had. And
Yeah.
how can I give back? And so he is my he is my number one for sure.
What's his name?
Benjamin.
Benjamin. I love
And
that.
he's an incredibly kind, wonderful human being. I love him so
And
much.
you know what? That's because you should take credit for a lot of that.
Thanks.
That's a really, really amazing thing to be
Thanks.
bringing up someone and
Yeah.
giving them that opportunity to be a part of you that
Yeah.
continues on this planet. That's
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And
So,
kids know when they're being like lied and tricked, you know what I mean?
oh
So don't
yeah,
just the moment I decided to live my most authentic self is the moment I could see a change in how he looked at me,
yeah.
and he's just like, you're superhuman. He just, and it's like I'm not this. I've tested boundaries as being a parent and I've been judged and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, this feels right. My
Yeah.
son and I have a very healthy relationship.
Which is
So
great. Well, congratulations for that.
thank you.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, kids, I teach kids on the mountain a lot
Mm,
and I unfortunately wasn't able to have children, but um, you know, I'm and that was a whole nother journey for me, but and one that was very difficult to accept, But now I get to look back and see these kids that I'm influencing and teaching, and I see them seasons later on the mountain,
yeah,
and like they all like they'll come running. They're like, Cam, and that is just, I think that's an amazing thing to be able to find a path in a way that you can influence the younger generation that way. And for it to
yeah,
be your own family is
yeah,
even more so. So,
yeah.
we're going to be taking a break here in a little bit, but, and we're going to come back with a lightning round. But before we go there, I want to make sure, tell us a little bit about let's say someone comes out with you or you decide to take them under your wing. What does that look like for them?
Um, we had so this is just an example. We had one of our biggest sponsors was out here from New York 2 nights ago, and I had intentionally, invited several Seasters along, and they were all like, "Well, what's the program? What's the format? What are we going to do?" And I said, "You know what? We're going to simulate a Seaster experience." Okay, well, what are we going to do? It's like, show up.
Yeah.
And that is so much about what it has become. The very first camp we ever did was a surf camp, and it was not this formula. Nothing against, like, if you want to take surf lessons, sail lessons, there are so many great organizations. What Seastr does is it offers like this first surf experience where there were women there who were big wave surfers. There were women who had never stepped foot in the ocean before around
Mhm.
one fire, and that was like, just let it go. You know what I mean? And there
Yeah.
were like 20 of them. Some of them are still connected today, and every experience is like that. You show up for a surf lesson, and we may just hold each other's hands and sit there and just feel the waves take us. It's whatever. I want you to show up in a way that that you're gonna have a positive experience, and I want you to see yourself in this experience. It's going to be a reflection of how you interact with the water.
That's
There
awesome.
is no one way.
Yeah.
So if you went sailing with us, we could go out there, we could be heeled over, going, 10 knots and all of that. And the next moment, we're all holding hands in just a complete silence and just feeling, you know. If you need time to pray, we will make that time. I
Yeah.
mean, it's extremely curated. It's something different, and we're developing it every day.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So, um, you're going to be with us October 26th. We're
Yep.
super excited about that. This will be your third time with us.
Yeah.
And so, what is it that you want people to know about the event? And is there anything that you remember as far as the last two times that really stood out for you?
Um, the connections that are made, the running around of like, I follow you on Instagram. And it's like handles come to life.
Yeah.
And then we start, it's actually what it is, and I know we're about to take a break,
No, you're
but
fine. You got a couple more minutes.
it's all I think all of us, no matter how, established our organization is that we're all um conveying that this is about collaboration, not competition,
Mhm.
and that we're amplifiers of one another.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that we're all going to benefit, is that if there's a strong community, communication, and cohesiveness, so that we're not siloing, and that we are creating opportunity for all of our guests and all of these communities will benefit if, like, let's say they show up to one program and they're like, well, that was fun, but it's like, well, then I think, you know what, you should call Annette, and I think
Yeah.
Edge would really be a good fit for you. But if we
Yeah.
didn't know about each other,
Yeah.
like, it's just
Yeah,
been amazing.
it's really, really cool. Like there's just things like I've actually already started like saying stuff like to friends that I mean, oh wow, you want to get into that? Like I know this person. Like you got to go to here. You got to, the Shredded Sisters are doing this and like,
Yeah,
it's really cool. Serve vamps and
yeah,
all of it. It's like I am just excited because there's some things that people are doing that I'm
yeah.
borderline terrified to do. But because I'm getting to know the people and learn about them, it really makes me feel confident to be able to participate with them. So I'm super excited for
Me too.
all of it. You know, you're in Catalina and I want you to do a 360 so we can see the gorgeousness of where you are. So give
All
us a
right.
little tour.
Yeah.
You
So
can.
we're directly across this large channel from Long Beach, California. Um, to I think it's 28 miles. And this is the smaller of the two towns. This is Two Harbors, and it's
Okay.
an isthmus, so I could literally walk over that knoll to the other side of the island.
Cool.
Um, it's a conservancy and it's a big park, so people will take the ferry over from Long Beach and they'll hike. There's all kinds of rentals and bike rentals and stuff. This is sailing vessel Libby. This is my parents' boat,
Okay.
and yeah, we come back here and into the
Don't fall
stern.
in.
This is my husband, David. David, say hello.
Hey,
Some of you
David.
already know David.
Nice.
This is Cam. And
Hey.
we just got back from diving, so we're cleaning all the gear.
Love it.
Yeah. And
Oh my gosh. Thanks, Erica.